Thanks, Yasmin. So sorry, I'm just coping with a last-minute technical issue.
Okay. So until you put the presentation on the screen, I just want to remind everyone that our session today is recorded, and the recording will be available to be shared with everyone attending right after the.
So here we go. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the correct one. So I'm going to share my screen. So welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. So today we're going to talk about building a strong workforce and management for export success. So let me share my screen when I can find the right button. Here we go. Rania or Yasmin, please can you let me share the screen?
Yasmin, can you please allow?
This.
For some reason, it doesn't allow, so just give me 1 second. I don't know what's happening today. So 1 second.
Oh, it seems to be allowing me to share. So let's see if everybody can see this.
Yes. Now.
Can you see this?
Now it's there, yes.
Yes.
There we go. It's Murphy's Law is very good when it comes to technology. If it can go wrong, it will, especially if it involves technology. So today we're going to talk about building a strong workforce and management for exporting success. We'd really like it to be more of a conversation than us talking to you all the time. We have some questions we want to pitch to you. I would say that it's a poll, so there's no identifiable information. We're not catching information and processing it according to this was your response. It's simply a live poll, and as we move on, the data goes. So don't worry about any answer you share in the poll, because there's no identifiable information in it. So if you've joined us before, then you know our lineup of speakers, but if not, let me briefly introduce everybody. First of all, Francis Harder. Francis is a designer, entrepreneur, a college professor, and author of Fashion for Profit, a best-selling book on fashion entrepreneurship. Jill is an IT specialist who's worked extensively with the fashion industry in Southern California and beyond in developing and implementing new IT systems for the fashion business. And Kristen Erdman-Burt is a consultant. She's worked with Red Bull, with Porsche Design. She's actually an adjunct professor at Cal Poly Pomona, and is a consultant to many leading fashion companies and outside the fashion industry too. Meditha is my colleague at Cal Poly Pomona. He is a professor and chair of the Apparel Merchandising and Management Department. He had a career in industry, working with companies in the Sri Lankan apparel industry, and then in the United States with companies like Maidenform. And he's a specialist in production, and Anne, I should say, is a specialist in branding and marketing. Meditha is a specialist in production, quality management, and supply chain. And then there's myself. I'm the former chair. I'm a professor at Cal Poly Pomona in the Apparel Merchandising and Management, former chair of the apparel program, and currently serving as associate dean in the College of Agriculture. And my specialization is the dynamics of competition and industry structure in the global apparel and textile sectors. So that's our lineup. And today, this is what we're going to review. We're going to quickly talk about the sort of the strategic imperatives, the vision for the future of the Egyptian industry, the strategic imperatives, the challenges to be overcome, and the workforce, and then move on to workforce and management development related to the challenges that the industry is facing as it moves towards its anticipated future. And we're going to look at workforce and management development at three general levels: the operator level, the technical specialists that the technical skills that the company needs, and then the management skills that companies need. And then we're going to talk about the importance of company organization and culture. And although that's embedded in our discussion about the workforce and management, I think it's important to highlight the importance of company organization and culture, and also the importance of support institutions to the industry, and the importance of the intensity of interaction with those institutions. So these are the things we'll be covering today. And
just 1 second, Peter, before
yes.
you continue, can we switch screens? I think we have a problem with the presentation, so I can share the screen for all of you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. So sorry. So now we are ready.
Okay. Okay. So so actually, there's a great deal being written about the Egyptian apparel and textile sectors right now. A lot of exciting stories about how Egypt is emerging as the next power in ready-made garments and textiles. And there's actually a lot of stories about investment that's pouring into Egypt. I think China has announced, or Chinese organizations have announced, a large amount of foreign direct investment into the Egyptian apparel and textile sector. And a lot of stories about buyers really paying closer attention to Egypt. So there's it's quite an exciting time, I think, that with all the issues, particularly with China, partly with its rising costs and partly because of the trade tensions between China and the United States especially, buyers are looking for new locations to source garments for the US market. And Egypt is one of those places where closer attention is being paid to. So it seems like Egypt is becoming, it's kind of entering that phase of a significant inward investment, growing interest from buyers. And so I think it's quite an exciting time that Egypt can emerge as I don't think it's going to be another China, but it can be another Vietnam and Bangladesh in the garment sector and then beyond. So, okay, thanks. So when we look at what's needed for Egypt to move towards that potential, then a lot of things keep coming up. The importance of improving efficiency and dependability in the Egyptian supply chain, increasing speed, reducing waste, bringing costs down, and being dependable in terms of delivery promises and quality. Another thing that comes up a lot is the adoption of new technologies, that the industry needs to invest in newer technologies and adopt new digital technologies for business processes in the manufacturing and in the marketing of products, and especially supply chain interconnections. And that's why we brought Jill into this project, because she brings that skill on supply chain connections. And the industry needs to improve its responsiveness and dependability of its supply chain. There's a lot being written about how there's a lot of delays in the supply chain affecting Egyptian companies. So that's another challenge to be addressed. And increasing general business capabilities within companies to adopt, so to move from CMT, cut, make, and trim type operations to full package services, and ultimately to own brand marketing. And companies are at different stages, and it may be that you're with a CMT company, it may be you're with a branded marketer, but generally the industry needs to move in that direction of assimilating greater capabilities, moving from domestic to international, CMT to branding, and adopting social responsibility and sustainability practices. And I have a call out if it's going to work properly, but it doesn't seem to be. Oh, sorry. Can you press the green button for me, Anne? There we go. I forget. I'm not controlling the screen. So so actually, this is an industry evolution model. It's a segment of an industry evolution model, and actually, this was used by the Chinese National Textile and Apparel Organization to help plan the development, the phase-wise development of their industry in China. And this is one segment of that model. So this is looking at business capability evolution. And in the yellow bar across the top, it's the industry is going from in a life cycle. I'm sure you're all interested with life cycle models. You go from at the beginning phase, it's pre-industrial, and then the takeoff, the industrial. Well, although the textile industry has been established in Egypt for a long time, this rapid growth phase is possibly where Egypt is currently entering, the sort of takeoff and rapid growth from just satisfying the domestic market to becoming a global player. And it's about building skills. You can see workforce skills go from low to medium to high, productivity from low to medium to high. Technologies go from being kind of second generation technology to being cutting edge technology as the industry evolves. So if we go to places like China now, we'll find companies in China that are on the cutting edge of technology when it comes to textiles and clothing. And management capabilities become more developed as we move on, marketing capabilities and design capabilities. So the industry in Egypt is really at a place of earlier development around maybe the takeoff phase on this particular matrix, but it's looking at moving to the right there and towards rapid growth and maturity where these capabilities develop. So we can go back, thank you, Anne. So, and then a final button on a final box on this slide is developing business management, moving towards scientific type decision making. Perhaps you can press on that hyperlink there, please, Anne, making scientific decision making. Meditha, do you want to explain this?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Keller. So most apparel companies that I have seen are making decisions sometimes based on experience rather than based on quantitative and qualitative approach. So I think because we are talking about the organization, their people, I think it's very important that the topic of this webinar is about improving the people so that we can improve the organization. So this slide is, we're talking about how we can do that based on scientific reasoning. I can remember when I started working, the marketing director was the person who was making decisions about the targets for production. And he looks at a garment and he says, you know what, we can make 30 per hour. He looks at another garment and he says, oh, we can make 60 garments per hour. Now that is based on experience, and most of the time it is correct if you really actually do a scientific study on that. But sometimes it creates some pressure for other departments and other people. And because you can't actually trust when you don't have a proper scientific system in order to reason why you made that decision. So it's very important that you measure the effectiveness using a scientific system, the process, and you also measure the effectiveness of people who are managing that process. So this is done through, we know that it's an industrial engineering function. In some organizations in Egypt, I'm sure you have that, but some organization maybe, as Dr. Kilaf said, if you are starting the launching stage in terms of management, you might not have, but I highly recommend that this is something that every organization should do, because you have to see what methods you use, what processes you have. You have to improve the methods, because every method, if you analyze, I'm sure you can find we are wasting time, or we are wasting energy, we are wasting skills sometimes if you don't improve the method by analyzing the method. Then the next item is you also have to improve the time, because we are paying employees based on time, right? Sometimes hourly, sometimes piece rate, whatever that is, there should be a scientific system in order to analyze how we should pay the employees. It is not to not to penalize them of not doing, but to have a fair system so that you can use the time wisely and effectively. And this is done through education and training, or learning and development, and creating a culture in the organization. So it's all about how we do a scientific method, how we adopt a scientific method in order to analyze the effectiveness of the organization. And you can switch back.
Okay, thanks, Medita. So the challenges to be overcome then relate to these strategic imperatives. So again, access to finance is one of those things that keeps coming up. The need to add value to your products and services, the ability to track and to meet changing buyer and market requirements, building your competitive capabilities by adopting new technologies, by supply chain integration, by deepening linkages with support institutions, and developing a culture of continuous improvement in companies. So these are important challenges to be overcome. And today's presentation is looking at all of those except for access to finance, because we're looking at workforce and management. Thanks, Anne. So the enabler for you is developing your human resources, developing your workforce, developing your management, and developing your company organization and culture. And in doing so, tap the resources available in your support infrastructure, in trade associations, in export councils, in educational institutions, in government agencies, and whilst they are here, the GTEx Menatex project. So this is a chart that I kind of shows a trajectory again of business development, of how companies or industries evolve, moving from a CMT orientation, domestic market focus, really just doing production management and quality control, and business to business selling to customers who give you the pattern and tell you what to do, and they give you the fabric and the trims, and you just cut, make, and trim. So this is a relatively simple, fairly homogeneous, and quite a stable environment. The buyers say, this is what we want, here you go, put this together, and you get paid for the service of assembly. It's a relatively simple, stable, fairly homogeneous environment. But as you evolve your business and move to half package production, full package production, and ultimately to develop your own brand capabilities, then you're moving down a continuum of becoming more internationalized. First of all, internationalizing your sourcing, and then also your design, and then you're getting involved in global supply chain management, and ultimately, when you're marketing your own brands, global supply chain management and global marketing or international marketing. And you are also developing your functions. So you move from just production, quality control, and B2B selling. You add sourcing and you add technical design. You're adding supply chain management, financial management, because when you're starting to coordinate international supply chains to meet buyer needs, you're going to be involved in financing that supply chain and compliance of the whole supply chain and ensuring customer service. And then ultimately, when you're marketing your own brand, on top of this, you're doing the full market analysis, you're positioning your brands, you're marketing them, promoting them, and you're maybe even selling direct to the consumer. And in this environment, it's much more complex than the CMT environment. It's much more diverse. You've got a more diverse product range, diverse array of customers, diverse array of markets. You may be selling in multiple international markets as well as the domestic market. And it's more dynamic, it's more subject to change, market conditions will be changing more frequently. Thanks, Anne. So do you want to take these next few, Anne?
Yes, I will. Yes.
And there's a question, so let me quickly address that question. There's a question from Said Mohammed Abu Yana. Industrial engineering is an excellent idea. However, if you have small orders, how can you use industrial engineering if the orders last 1 week to 10 days? That is frequent style changes. I think that's a great question, and that is what we expect the Egyptian industry to head, right? Small orders, frequent changes, either fast fashion or customized, personalized, or whatnot. So that is why we need a robust industrial engineering system that can be done very quickly. So you can identify the standard minute values very quickly. You can identify the method of production from cutting room to sewing to finishing. And also we need a set of good competitive people who can actually manage it. So right now we have big orders. I mean, when you say big, when I started working in the industry, the big orders for 50,000, 60,000, 300,000. But today the big orders may be 5,000, 10,000. So I think we need a robust industrial engineering system. We need proper planning so that not that the order is just coming today and they want the order in 10 days. So I'm sure the order may be coming in providing sufficient time for the people to take action and actually implement the robust IE system and get the method finalized for the process, and then the times finalized for the process and actually implement it. I know it's the learning curve. It takes 10 days, actually not 10 days, maybe 30 days to learn if you think of the previous system in order to get a line with an efficiency that you expect, 80%, 70% or whatnot. However, this is the reality. So you have to face it in some way. So that is why we need people and systems in place. And all yours.
Okay, perfect. So before we start into the details in the second part of the presentation, we would like to quickly look at the development stages. We are aware of and believe, of course, there's stages and not everything will be done in one day. It's also, we talked about that in our last webinar, it's step by step. So there's the short-term development, which is more the internal trainings, hiring strategies, maybe working with external experts to support in a transition phase if the resources are not in-house yet. And that can be starting from maybe freelance designers or also working with a freelance website developers. So to help on that side to slowly push all the workforce development in the right direction. In the midterm development, it can go into more professional development opportunities in-house and also external, fringe and health benefit systems, engagement and performance. And then in the long-term development, the academic institutions come in with curricular adaptation, collaboration, apprenticeship programs, internship programs, and more career development. So all of it will evolve in stages, and really like one builds on the next. When we then look at an example organization, and this is to get you like the big picture, every organization is also looking different. This is just one example we pointed out before we then go into each level and the more details. So what you see in the top green bar is the strategy and leadership, general management, who provides the vision, the guidance on a day-to-day, making sure the company moves into the right direction, and of course also has the power and the influence on building programs, changing strategies. So there in the top management, that it is a completely different need of workforce development than in the next level. You see here the management in blue. So you have the production departments, sourcing, purchasing, allocation. Under production, you have your production manager or your team. Again, this is an example organization and does not cover maybe exactly your organization. Also, maybe your organization is smaller than that, but maybe this is a long-term vision you have to develop your company. So you have sourcing and purchasing allocation. Then you have your product management, design, development. You have your marketing and sales team. You have your operations and finance, which will cover your accounting, your logistics. So the management level of these departments also have another need in skill development than the strategic leadership. So we're gonna dive deeper into these levels in our next slides. And then you see in the dark blue box here, we have the technical level and operating level. So in the technical level, we have the pattern making, quality management, the allocator and planner, the designer, the merchandiser, the e-commerce manager under marketing and sales, the export sales manager, and the finance, accounting, logistics. So this is the technical level. And then we move into the operating level with cutting and sewing under the production, printing, embroidery, the allocation and planning office. Under product management, design and development, we have the technical design and sampling. And marketing and sales, the sales offices, your customer service, day-to-day communication with your customers, and then operations and finance, the shipping, also the essential part. So again, the reason we show this slide is the levels, because we're gonna go into the next slide to really go into more details on skill development, recruiting, training, specific to the needs of each of these different levels of the organization.
Thanks, Anne. Before we go there, I want to. I see there's a thread in the chat. Do you want to comment on it, Medita?
Yes, and then we can move on to this poll. Yeah, so I think what Mohammed says is that there's not enough time, and if they have correct the data collection. I'm not sure what you mean by data collection. I mean, you have to have a setup system, say, for example, general sewing data, where you can go into a system and you can pull the standard minute values, you can pull the methods, and then you can set up your line or production unit. And then also, I think it's very important that we move into more flexible manufacturing systems. We cannot, the line production bundle, progressive bundle system is good for larger orders. But as you move on to small orders, if you're talking about 10-day turnaround time, you really need to set up flexible manufacturing system. And I know that some of you are getting trained on lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and so on and so forth. I was meeting with Eamon the other day, and he said his company is investing on that, the training. So it's all about human resource development, because at the end of the day, the company CEO or the general manager cannot run the production. I mean, you really need to empower the employees, and you really need to get the systems in place. There's no alternative. I mean, you can negotiate higher price for small orders, definitely, but I think there's no alternative. I mean, what can you do? Either you take the order or do not take the order. That's it. So I think we are in a environment where we are today. It's very competitive, and there are a lot of companies. I mean, we are actually in United States, we are working on micro factories. And that is a totally different topic that I don't want to bring it up right now because of the time. But that is small orders. How can you actually produce small orders with small manufacturing plants, decentralized the large manufacturing space, make small units, and that make them cost centers. And then you cost it and you profit, identify profits of those cost centers. So let's move on. And I think we can discuss at the end also further, but this is a great discussion. I think this is what we want. We really want your questions, and then we can suggest. I mean, there may not be perfect answer. However, that is the learning that we need to do in moving towards from CMT to your own half package, full package, and brand manufacturing. So,
Medusa, I think, emphasizing the smaller orders going forward is going to be incredibly important, because we're seeing that more and more. So adjusting to your costing, and if somebody comes and you've already costed it for a certain price, and that price is based on X amount of units, and then they come and order smaller amounts, you have to evaluate all this before you go in. And I think it's critical. I see this all the time in the sourcing, and they said, oh, we didn't get the large orders we wanted. You're not going to get the larger orders going forward. That's really the realistic fact. So adjusting your costing now, before you go in, is, I think, an important point.
Yeah. And then, I mean, retailers put pressure, or your buyers put pressure on you, and they want the same pricing as you did 10 years ago. But that is not real anymore. You cannot do that. Either you enjoy your loss and do the order, or you negotiate and take the order and make a profit of it. I mean, that's a negotiation. I think that's why we discussed this in the previous webinar, that you need to have a quality manual, you need to have a sourcing manual, where you can clearly put these terms in place. If you have an order where it's a turnaround is 10 days, of course I can't run a 80% efficiency production line. I need to make it down to 65% or 50%. And then in that case, what would be the cost? And then what would be my profit margin over the cost? So that is my wholesale price. So let's go on.
They could also be doing a test order. So they may do a small test order with you to see if you can fulfill what it is they need. So they'll often do that. I've seen.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm sure the retailers, I mean, the buyers are actually, they understand this, not that they don't understand. They pretend like they don't understand. But at the end of the day, it's your buyer, it's your relationship, it's your trust with them. And you need to make sure that they buy what you say. It's not a lie. It's not untrue. It is the true. It's a fact. And then we have to deal with the fact. And that is what I think we should definitely do. So let's move on to this slide where we are asking you a couple of questions. So I'm putting this link on the chat box. So if you are from a company joining our webinar today, if you could please go to that link, click on that, and then it will ask your name. You don't need to give your name. You can say a number if you want, but the way the survey is set up, it will ask your name. You can put like your initial or something, where we don't need to understand who it is, but we just want to get a feel of who you are. So let's try this. I hope this will work.
So what should happen is as you answer it, then a chart will start appearing on here. So it's a live chart. Then we have a series of questions about your activities and workforce development challenges.
For us, it's really important today to get your input and like really answer all your questions. And so we're gonna definitely have more of the polls in the next slide. So get comfortable with the link.
And as I say, this isn't doesn't have any identifiable information, so it's entirely anonymous. So Eamon is saying there's no next or confirm button.
It will come. Oh, it is not.
There is an exit button.
Try posting your answer. Let me check the website also, because I need to switch between the presentation and the website. So I see, I'm not sure.
It's good.
I see it's working. I see it's working on the website, but I don't see that working here. So let me synchronize this and see again. Okay.
Mudita, let me know if I need to do anything with the presentation.
No, I think what I need to do is, let me see if I can.
There's a button at the there's a label at the bottom of the screen that says start the presentation to see live content.
Are we supposed to make a presentation right now?
No.
No. When you, I mean, when you respond, it should show on the slide the responses from the audience. So that's what we are trying to do. So give me.
I received the question: how do you rate yourself as a line supervisor or a general manager? Is this the right page?
Yes, it's the right page. So you should answer.
I answered that I'm the best general manager in the world, and then what happens? It says make a presentation.
So yeah, give me 1 second. I'll sort this out. It's a small technical issue. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Amir, did it send you a gold star too when you did that?
It said you are world class. It says you're the Prince of Egypt, world class. So I don't know what else to say.
Then you know what?
I haven't had my vodka yet. So if I'm answering the wrong answers, excuse me.
You seem to be doing okay. Mudita, when I just set it up for testing, and when I clicked on my response, it does say response recorded. It doesn't really give you an opportunity to exit. So maybe you just close out of the tab, but is it recording for you? Are you getting responses?
No, and I think if you can let me share, I think my one is working. I think that's because you are running the PowerPoint. So let me share my screen. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, so I see that. Oops.
So.
Okay. So this is the kind of the response. So I see that there's a, from the audience, we have line supervisors, we have department managers, production managers, quality managers, and so on and so forth. We have 46% of the respondents from the general management. And then we have 38% senior managers. So it's great. So this slide, we did that so that we can understand, who is in the audience. And that way we also can see that we have a lot of people in the audience who make serious decisions, right? So in the general management and senior management level. So that's great. Thank you so much. And I will probably manage the PowerPoint now. And
Okay.
so let's go to the next slide. Oops. Why is that?
I tell you what, Meditha, perhaps stop sharing, maybe let Anne reshare hers again, and then when we do the poll, we'll switch to you to see the poll results.
Okay, and you go ahead, and then I'll probably will switch and I'll show the website. Yeah.
So talking about development of workforce and management at the operator and supervisor level. So there's three identical slides we have here to have this discussion, and Meditha has the poll questions for you, and we can do the poll, but we can also chat too. And as the company moves from moving from CMT to own brand, from domestic to international, as it upgrades technology, as it adopts sustainability and social responsibility practices, as it grows as a company, what are the issues in terms of recruitment, in terms of training or educating your workforce and your management, and in terms of retaining your employees at all levels? And so some common things that are out there are finding people with the right skills, issues with regarding to pay or benefit levels or expectations. In terms of training, it can be availability of training where your company is, the ability to pay for training, and a problem of engaging your employees, at motivating them and wanting them to be engaged with the business to achieve your business objectives. And then in terms of retention, also the same issue, employee engagement and pay issues keep coming up with when it comes to retention. These are issues for companies, not just in Egypt, but everywhere, and not just in apparel, but in most businesses. So let's have a look at the next poll, and then, so the next poll question is, what are the most critical operator supervisor level recruitment hiring issues? So what is the most critical issue for hiring facing you for operators and supervisors? So A, the reputation for these kind of jobs is not favorable. The lack of required skills in the market. The pay is, pay expectations in the area are too high. There's competition from other companies and from others. So we actually wanted to, as Meditha said at the top of the meeting, we hoped you could select multiple, but the poll will only allow you to select one. So what is the most critical issue for your company?
So can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, Samia.
I don't want to ruin the poll, but did I understand the question right? The question is about how to move from a CMT company to a full package, or
it's about yes. It's really about considering what are the challenges you're facing today, and as you move along the development continuum, as your company develops. That if your company develops, so what are the challenges you're facing in your business today? And because we've got multiple businesses in the meeting, some of those businesses may be already doing half or full package. Some of them may already be doing brands. And we know some companies may do CMT for international customers, but have their own brand on the domestic market. So it's as we move along the continuum of company development, as your companies develop and grow, what are the challenges being faced? What are the challenges you're currently facing as you move in this direction?
Two things: availability of fabric mills in Egypt, because, for example, we make men's and ladies classic woven formal wear. So there are no many fabric suppliers in Egypt to help us do the fabric and the manufacturing at Bishara and ship to Europe and the US. With the people doing knits, they have the dye house and the weaving and the manufacturing under the same roof. This is the famous model in Egypt, which helps a lot the people working in knitted products, because they do the Egyptian cotton, they make the dye in the dye house, and they produce the fabric. For us weaving, it is a bit more complicated process. So for Egypt to compete on the front of woven classic ready-made garments, we need to invest, the country needs to invest in mills doing the polyrayon, the 100% wool, the 100% polyester fabrics. The other thing, the availability of designers, because if you want us to go to the customers in the US or in Europe with a full collection, then we need designers.
Right.
I don't know whether I answered. It is not one
Yes.
of the 4 options on the screen, but this is my simple, humble opinion.
Right.
I think this is great, Amir. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to see the discussion, and maybe if more people wanna also tell us what they see are the challenges, that also works.
Yes.
Fashion design to suggest the styles, and of course, when we have the fabric mills, they also should have their collections, because we are facing a big challenge that with Europe, for example, they need multiple collections in a very short lead time, and they are always telling us, look to Morocco, look to Turkey, and they started asking us to get the fabrics from Turkey to Egypt and the fabrics from Morocco to Egypt to ship them quickly to Europe. And still, when those mills are late, we are to blame because of missing the delivery, and it's very, very, very difficult. With the US market, it's a bit easier because the US customers plan 5 months, 6 months ahead. So it might give us a chance to find a good fabric mill, whether in the Middle East or Europe, or whether in China, to be able to ship on time to the US. So if you want to enter the European market from Egypt, we need reliable, professional fabric mills close to the manufacturing facilities, so there is no lead time, to shrink the production lead time of fabric and manufacturing, and to have a leg in Europe with a very fast, dynamic fashion market these days.
Right. Well,
Peter, can I just jump in
Sure.
very quickly here?
Sure.
Okay, so I do have a question, and I have been working extensively on a project. It's a global project, and it involves textile suppliers from all over the globe. And what it is it's a platform where textile suppliers are actually putting the materials that they have available onto a platform where companies such as yourself, factories and manufacturers and design houses and so on, can take a look at all of these material libraries to see what materials are available or are available for purchase, the pricing on it, the location of the mills where the fabric exists. And I'm just wondering if that's something that anybody has heard about on this webinar. There are several different platforms, and not every platform works with every supplier. Obviously, the suppliers have their own favorite companies that they want to put their inventory on. But it has actually become a very useful tool for a lot of companies to be able to quickly source materials, fabrics. You can actually see a visual representation of the fabric in 2 dimensions and in 3 dimensions to see what the fabric looks like. It gives you a lot of the attributes about the material, what the composition is, what type of knit or weave it is, what kind of finishes, so on and so forth. Has anybody heard of any of these companies such as Material Exchange, or that's probably the biggest one out there is Material Exchange, but there are other ones as well. So I'm just curious.
I haven't heard of that.
I've heard about the Material Exchange.
Okay. Okay. Is that something that you would like me to provide a little bit more information on later on? I can't pop up all the data about it right now, but it may be something that provides help for you guys to be able to see what materials out there, and especially if you are looking for materials in Morocco or Turkey or other countries in North Africa or the Middle East, to see what's there, what's available, and to access it quickly.
Yeah, it will be helpful because their website is not as good as I thought. I didn't spend some time on it. It needs a lot of improvement, and I didn't get the concept out of it immediately.
I understand, and it's, you know, there's I think 3 different companies out there that are all sort of competing right now to get that material information in those databases to be created. But I'll tell you what, by the time we have our next webinar, I will pull together some content for you guys so you can have a better understanding of what it is that is available to view.
Excuse me, can I say something, please?
Yes.
Under the weaving capabilities of Egypt, someone raised the issue that he cannot get woven fabric in Egypt. He can get only knits. Am I correct?
I was saying that the knits model is.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because the trade agreements like QUIZ and EU agreements allow Egyptian garment manufacturers to source fabric from a third country and gain the rule of origin in Egypt. So the trade agreement does not encourage fabric mills to be located in Egypt. It's much cheaper and better quality to source from China or from anywhere in the world and get the material to Egypt and ship it as a garment. So the key to this is the trade agreements with the US and EU. Thank you.
Is there a problem, and actually we're kind of off the topic, but I think, is there an issue with bureaucracy for imports coming in, and that's what makes it less dependable, that there's a lot of bureaucracy that slows down supplies from places like Italy and Turkey?
Well, are you asking me about, someone was saying that there's no weaving mills in Egypt, and I was just telling him the reason that it's cheaper, and even if you import it legally, it's cheaper and better quality, and you can ship it as a garment. And the rule of origin applies if you just do the manufacturing of the garment in Egypt. In a way, the trade agreement does not encourage the textile industry in Egypt.
Yeah.
It only encouraged garment.
Right.
And this is an issue.
So anyway, let us go back to the workforce, shall we? Workforce development. Meditha, did we have any answers to the poll? Because I'm wondering whether that maybe the simplest solution is we show the questions and basically we ask the audience to write their answer into the chat box. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Lichner? Said that it's yeah, there's multiple answers to this one, and they believe that everyone except C is an important issue.
No, so I think writing on the chat box will create a very confusing or time-consuming problem. But I think when you have the most critical. when you have the most critical issue, then I think we can do that. So can I share my screen, Dr. Kilov? I got responses.
Okay, and is confirming.
Mudita, can I quickly ask a question in between regarding the poll? Just a
Sure. Sure, Sandra.
السؤال ده للناس اللي جاوبت. هل I will say it in Arabic and then translate. هل أفضل أعين ناس من مصانع تانية ولا أنا هجيب حد؟ أنا بتكلم على جونيور ليفل، أنا مش بتكلم على سينيور ليفل طبعا. ولا أجيب ناس فريش خالص rather than ناس من مصانع تانية. يعني عايزة سؤالي الكونكلوجن بتاعه الخبرة التراكمية في المصانع المختلفة أفيد ولا أنا أجيب حد فريش عشان يبقاش التاني المصنع التاني بيعمل حاجة مختلفة فرمطه على نظيف أحسن في الفيري جونيور ليفل في الجونيور ليفل. My question was to the private sector whether they prefer for the junior level fresh hiree out of the sector or they'd rather headhunt from other factories.
Let me answer.
Sure.
This is Osama, glass company. I prefer to get fresh people, but because they are not corrupted with the others, you can put your strategy on this new fresh graduated, teach them the way you like. They are not transfer their experience. Maybe they have a bad experience or good experience, whatever. They are not allowed to transfer their new experience inside the company. So you keep your shape, you keep your strategy on the way you like. So you can manage it all the time.
Thank you.
Okay, can I, as you can see, thank you for responding to this question. The most critical operator supervisor level recruitment hiring issue is, as we can see, lack of operator supervisors in the job market with required skills. So, and then you have about 20% of you have replied that competition from neighboring companies. So that this also gives us a feeling of, I mean, this is a common problem that I have seen in many parts of even in Asia, where there's not sufficient operators and supervisors to hire. And then they are also migrating to companies next door because, you know, they're offering, you know, a couple of dollars, a couple of whatever the currencies more in terms of pay, or sometimes their benefits are better or something like that. So I think, so it's quite clear that Egypt also in the manufacturing sector, is apparel manufacturing sector, you see that it's difficult to find operators, which is good. I mean, when I say which is good, for us to understand that this is a problem. And I think this also gives us an opportunity for training and development, which is the next part that we are moving in. So let's go to the next slide.
So before you move on, Meditha, let me just comment something. So one of the interesting things I found is that the Bangladesh Garment Association has a program that just trains people to be sewing machinists. It's not related. They're not in employment. They're training just unemployed people. It's something they do, which they believe then creates a pool of skilled people who will then go into the industry. So I've never seen it before, but they're training people with no strings attached. It's, would you like to train? Let's train you. They don't charge them anything for training, and their concept is just to, so there's actually a pool of readily trained people, and that they will then, once having been trained, it will then they'll migrate into the industry. So it may be that they're doing it as a kind of a way of lowering those perceptual barriers of people wanting to work in a factory. But they train sewing machinists with no strings attached, so that they create a pool of labor. I thought that was one of the most interesting things I've seen. And another thing I'd like to share is about 20 years ago, before I left the United Kingdom to come to the United States, I was working on a European Commission project to assist the garment industry in the textile and garment industries in Northern England. And I worked with clusters of companies. And one group I worked with was a group of sewing companies in Sheffield. And when I brought them together to meet, and actually they'd never met before, they'd never ever got together as a group, and they were all surprised how many sewing companies there were in Sheffield. And there were a lot. And a lot of them were making, they were doing private label work for the big UK retailers. The critical issue they had was recruiting sewing machinists and supervisors. And there was no desire to work in a garment factory. And so we got them to, we looked at the issues, and another thing they picked out was competition from other companies. And we implemented a joint project with them where all of the companies came together, shared their recruiting needs, and we did a campaign with the local city council and the job centres in Sheffield, and did a campaign to recruit about 50 sewing machinists. And it was really successful. We marketed this as something that was really worth doing, was a good career. It actually, the surprising thing we found out was that to work as a sewing machinist paid twice the level of pay you would get as a shop assistant in a retail store. So we learned quite a lot of things. And the other thing that was surprising about their situation was all of these companies, the ability to recruit sewing machinists and first-line supervisors was the primary thing holding back their business. They were turning orders away because they couldn't recruit sewing machinists. So we ran this campaign, and we did it collectively, and we created this huge pool which they then recruited from. And it was the first time they'd solved their problem of shortages, but they did so by working together and developing a sector-wide campaign in the city. So it's interesting that this is, like I say, it's a problem everywhere, but actually collective work can help solve these problems. We'll come back to this. So training and education. So, okay, great. Everybody's been answering this. So Meditha, do you want to explain?
So yeah, so again, thank you for answering for this question. So from recruitment, let's move on to training and education of the operators and supervisor level. And again, I can see a higher percentage of you have said that you're not maintaining a skill inventory for the company. And now what the skill inventory, if you don't maintain a skill inventory, then you don't know what skills you have, what skills you want. And I think it's important that companies maintain a skill inventory. When it comes to a later slide, I will discuss about a case study that, and then also some information that I found from a company called Mars Holdings in Sri Lanka, and how they have developed their workforce and managers. Then there's no internal training for 20% of you have responded, no external training programs, 20% of you have responded, and then there's high training cost. So is there anybody who would like to kind of bring up some sort of a discussion, maybe one or two of you, if we can, with respect to time, why you don't maintain a skill inventory is one of my questions. And the second question is, can you talk about the training, what you do, whether internal or external, and why do you can't find all the training program costs? If you can talk about it, then we can understand a little better.
So I see there's quite a lot of comments. Sam says this.
And we have a raised hand from Hassan.
Oh, Sam, you want to?
If you would allow me about this topic, there are just several factors that we need to talk about here in this issue. So first of all, yes, I heard your comment about those. I don't know if they're public or private sector, but I would understand from your talk, Peter, that it's about the public sector that's investing more in training people, stewing skills and such. So actually, there are also several programs here in Egypt, but what we hear of is that they are full of corruption, and this is not helping much here in Egypt. I already took part in several of them, and they're already full of corruption, and they're not really aiming to really teach the people, but rather to I don't know, collect some money illegally from several organizations. So this is on one hand. On the other hand, it's difficult to keep, because in my humble point of view is that okay, we have two sectors. My company, for example, is working in export market as a private label, and also working for the local market. The export market, I would say that basically it's a very huge competition, and you know, the big brands, they're looking for 5 cents less anywhere, and they're just going to run through and find this supplier. So the competition is very high. We cannot really actually overcome our expenses, and we cannot pay the workers very well, and yet they're asking us for more requirements, such as the ecological requirements, the environmental requirements, and they're asking for a lot of requirements, and we cannot keep up with the expenses, and this means that we have to cut down costs. And yes, of course, this is a big problem, because we cannot pay the workers, and it's not lucrative enough for them to work as sewing workers or supervisors whatsoever. And then when we look at the local markets, then yeah, okay, some of them, they prefer to run back to small shops, like micro shops, that they are, you know, what they call out of sight. You know, they're not in the side of the government, and therefore they don't have any expenses. You know, they don't pay taxes, they don't pay insurances, they don't pay anything, and the sewers just run off to them to have a better pay. So this is my point of view about this. Thank you.
Thanks, Hassan. And you know, that it is a problem faced in, you know, just about every industry everywhere, and yeah, it's including where we are in Los Angeles. Companies that are operating in the black economy, and yes, are not paying taxes, and are actually paying their workers below minimum wage, and then they make the competition tough for others. And this is a buyer-driven industry where and the problem is the buying industry is not very profitable at all. They work on very small margins, so that they're very tough on their suppliers to get the very best price. It's an extremely competitive business.
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Again, we are talking about the retention, and if you can also respond to the questions on the retention, I will show you the PowerPoint presentation to get a feeling of for a discussion on retention of the operators and supervisors.
Dita, are you sharing your screen? I can't see your screen.
Yeah, I'm sharing.
Oh, no, Meditha was sharing his, I think.
Oh, perfect. Now I can see it.
Okay, you got a full screen, Meditha?
Yeah, I'm trying to. It gives me a little bit trouble this for today for some reason.
No, we're bridging 3 time zones in this meeting.
So this is about the retention. So let's see if you can respond, please. it shows like, okay, only 3 people have responded. Could you please kind of respond so that we can understand?
Everybody's responding. An interesting story about retention I remember is visiting the American Apparel factory in Los Angeles, and they went out of business ultimately, but it was a strategy issue rather than a people. Well, the person, the boss was the ultimate problem, but it was really his strategy that ended the business. But they were incredibly successful in running a big garment manufacturing operation in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, one of the most expensive cities in the United States. And what they did was and they paid really, really well. The company utilized a modular system of manufacturing, which was, the teams of 6 working in a U-shape layout, and each team of 6 was responsible for making the specific garments, and the teams were all next to each other in kind of a row along this factory. It was a huge factory, and they actually, they were, I remember when I was visiting there probably about a dozen or more years ago, they were earning like $17 an hour. Sewing machinists on these teams were earning $17 an hour, which was way above minimum wage for the US. But they were doing it based on their productivity, that working as a team in a modular system, they were incredibly efficient. But beyond that, beyond the good pay, the company also had various kind of what I would call social services they gave to their employees. They had space where they ran evening classes about managing finance. There was a lot of Spanish speakers from immigrant families, and they were teaching English. And they put on a lot of programs to support their workforce. So their turnover was incredibly low, and they were really successful. And he's revived the model. The owner of the company has revived the model with a new company called LA Apparel.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job, and you have to say that. I used to go to the factory too, and I think they had yoga, and they had a childcare facility as well. So they had, this opportunity to, as you said, Peter, have Spanish learning, or English learning for the Spanish people, and yoga exercises, and a childcare. And the modular manufacturing, it was posted in each team how much they were earning. And so Mildred would be earning $17 an hour, and maybe Jose's was 16, but it's very efficient way of doing it. And they could handle smaller runs as well.
Right. Yeah, it was a model factory. I remember the gentleman who ran the factory, a gentleman called Marty Bailey. He's actually on our advisory board for our department. Mm-hmm. He took us to the factory one day and he showed us a team of 4 making a T-shirt, and they were sharing components. Their desks their sewing tables were pushed together, so they were all facing each other, and they were sharing components for the T-shirt. He said they made, and I think Meditha came on that visit, I think they made a T-shirt every 7 or 9 seconds. These 4 people made a T-shirt every 7 or 9 seconds, and they were passing garment panels around like they were playing cards. But every 7 or 9 seconds, a shirt, the 4 of them finished a T-shirt. So it's interesting what can be done. And that was a unique model that he was experimenting with.
He's still doing it like that, though. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on with this the retention slide, and we see a mix of ideas here that and some of most of you have said, or equally you have said that you're not offering or your pay and benefits are less competitive, and then the operators and supervisors do not have an opportunity for growth or to upskill and getting promotions. And then we have we do not offer additional motivations such as incentives, meals, clothing, health services, etc. I will discuss in a little more detail when I come to the case study of a company. Workforce is mainly female. They leave for family needs. And I think this is a universal problem. It is not just in Egypt. I also saw in the chat box that the Chinese operators and the workforce, when they go home for Chinese New Year, they sometimes don't return. Of course, they sometimes in different provinces, they go from one province to another. They have other issues as well, even though the companies provide them food and lodging and other services. So this is kind of a universal problem, but my question is, if we can hear from you, do you do a survey on operator salaries in the region? And do you try to be competitive? My question number one. My question number two is, why there is lack of opportunity to upskill and promote? Is that because when they get trained, they will leave? Is that the reason? I also have technical issues. I can't see my mouse, my cursor right now. Oh, okay, here you go. So let me stop sharing this. And let's see.
So shall we move on to the next, because time is our enemy.
Yeah, I think what we should do is let's move on to the next slide, and you can share that, and then we can probably discuss rather than actually polling for the next couple of questions.
So technical specialists. So as your company is developing, and what are the issues you're facing with regard to recruiting, training, and retaining technical specialists? And technical specialists, I would think of, I would put designers in this category: technical designers, creative designers, IT people, social media people, equipment technicians, anybody who has a technical specialization, IT specialist for business processes.
I think I would jump in here, Peter, if you don't mind, just quickly, because I know one of the biggest challenges any company faces is having the skill set to operate the cutting machines, to understand the digitization of patterns, the marking, the grading. Those are just, what I would consider the basics of what every company needs to have in terms of technology. And I am understanding that these aren't necessarily skill sets that are taught in any universities or any trade schools or things like that. Essentially, it's taking an employee and teaching them how to use these different systems in order to be able to run the manufacturing side of the business. And I would extend that to sort of the next layer when we were looking at Anne's chart in terms of the skill set of operators in the company, being able to process sales orders, being able to process purchase orders, being able to track inventory, being able to look at the statistics if you are using something to manage shop floor control, being able to, excuse me, take that information and make solid decisions from that. And unfortunately, those aren't really skills that are taught anywhere. It's something that essentially you as managers, owners, directors of a business are essentially responsible for teaching your employees. Some of these skills are a little bit more natural than others. People learn potentially how to do bookkeeping by keeping their bank accounts and doing checking accounts and things like that. So maybe understanding, taking that to the next level and being able to take those skills and translate them into, excuse me, accounting and bookkeeping systems makes it a little bit easier, but trying to understand the rest of that level of technology is challenging. There are some online resources that are either free or fairly affordable that do teach more of the generic skills, but when it comes to the skill set for apparel manufacturing, it can be very challenging. So I know a lot of you are still using manual systems, and those of you that have been able to implement systems for ERP or MRP, manufacturing requirements planning, shop floor control, production planning, most of you have had to rely on the companies whose software you've purchased to help train your employees. But once those companies are gone, you are generally left in a situation where any new employee coming in may have to be trained by either the existing employees, or if that existing employee has left, it sometimes can leave a very big gap in your business process. So one of the things that I like to think about in terms of technology is it's definitely a skill. So it might be a higher level skill than being a sewing machine operator or a cutting machine operator. But yes, so somebody just popped up with technical specialists. The biggest issue is in availability. So I don't necessarily know how to solve that. It is something where maybe as the apparel industry or the apparel specific courses are being built in the universities, that's something that can be taught as well. I know with Cal Poly Pomona and a lot of the universities in the US, the technology skills are part of the curriculum. People are taught how to use these manufacturing software. They're taught how to use the cutting software, the pattern making software, the marking and grading software. Even with the ERP software, I know that's one of the main courses, is to teach people to understand what the business process is and how it relates into software. And it can be challenging, you're right. But to me, I think that it is, well, I'm a technology geek in the group, so I love technology. And I always think that that is a great opportunity for somebody to be able to learn, and also for them to be able to advance, up the level of into management once they're understanding the business process, once they're being able to create reports and report back to the company owners about how things are moving on the factory floor. Where do they see opportunities for improvement? The skills build, and that is definitely a route in order to move up into these management roles that we were talking about earlier. Excuse me.
Okay, well,
Peter.
Thanks, Joe. So availability can be an issue for these, and sometimes I think it's actually about also about knowledge, about information availability. So graduates of institutions are not aware that jobs are available, and companies can be unavailable that certain institutions are producing students with certain skills, because that's also something I've found is part of the availability issue. It's imperfect information, so Mohammed is saying the problem is availability of the people to train. So I think so that's recruitment side. What about training? What about the training side? And sorry, Mohammed was referring to training, but I'm thinking about internal training. So that the people you've got, can they be trained? And Is it are they willing to train? Is the training too expensive? Is it difficult to
Can I
find?
come into that, please, Peter?
Yes.
Peter, the problem is in Egypt is our industry is like doesn't attract people to come and work into it. Okay, so this is a major issue at the beginning. If you have to think about it, if we go back to 90s, there was sufficient operators, okay, and skilled operators. This is actually came from the buildup of the public sector itself. So there, for example, the city which we have our factory built into it, it's Kafr Dawar. This city on the early 70s, 60s, it was very known in Europe with the factories being working there. So Egypt, before let's say 90s, 20s, there was no problem to find operators. The main problem there at this time, it was to train people and to get them into the new tech and actually develop them. Now, the problem is we even pay high salaries. Okay, we train people, but the problem is we don't find people to train. Okay, that's why we have to go to dual education, try to build and rise up a new generation. So we start to take them from the start and try to teach them, actually to keep them like 4 days in the factory, 2 days in the school, and try to teach them everything from scratch and try to build up their mentalities to understand our business. Okay, but the major problem which we are all facing is we don't even find the people to train. Okay, for example, even if we offer a good salaries, still the people are running out from us and they want to work, for example, they want to drive tuk-tuk, they want to stay still. I don't know what to say. They always choose the easy job to do. Even sometimes if they get low income from us. Yeah. So this is a major issue here. It's like maybe we need to find another way, is like some support from the government for building up this. Even I'll tell you something. Sometimes we talk about the supply chain and we don't have the fabrics and everything, but now everything is open globally. That's why we, for example, for my manufacturing of outerwear jackets, we don't buy any fabrics from Egypt. Everything is coming either from China, either from Turkey, or any way else, not from Egypt, because polyesters, you cannot find it properly here in Egypt. Okay, so this is another story, especially for outerwear jackets.
Right.
The major problem is we are all under the pressure of the cost. Big customers or even small customers, everybody is pushing for the cost. So you want us to make a good retention to the people. We will also have to give good salary to the people. And at the same time, we are all like, you know, locked with the cost. So I think this is really need a big support, but a big support with a proper vision. So after 5-10 years, then we can say that, yes, we build a proper pool of operators, of people who keen to work on this industry.
Yeah.
This is actually what I want to share. Yeah.
No, it is a challenge, and you know, it's one of the talks that I give to our students at Cal Poly Pomona is I tell them they have to put their prejudices away when they come to career choices, because a lot of them will think things like, well, I don't want to work in a garment factory. So I say, why? Well, you know, have you ever been there? Have you? No. Well, why? You know, I said, and I tell them a story of one of my former students from North Carolina State University who went to work in industrial textiles. And I said, you know, how many of you dreamed of working in industrial textiles when you were in school? And of course, the answer is nobody. And I said, but she's got a career that she loves. And of course, you wouldn't think about it naturally. And so I say, you know, there are prejudices to overcome. And I do think that's where the industry has to come up with, and sometimes, you know, I mean, companies yourselves have to be able to say, you know, we're a great place to work. And the student who went to work in the industrial textile sector, she actually came to see me and said, oh, I don't know that they really want to give me a job. And I said, what's the problem? Well, it's a factory. I said, I said, but you hit it off with the people. I said, what matters is the people you work with, not the location. And now she's had 20 odd years in industrial textiles. And it's so there are prejudices to overcome. And I think that is something that is best done collectively to sort of remarket the industry to job seekers. So,
okay, Dr. Kilab, let's move on with the next slide. So let's bypass the poll because with respect to time. So let's go to management. Dr. Kilab, you want to take this slide?
Sure. So then it's the same issue with what are the challenges in recruiting middle and senior managers, in recruiting them, in training and educating them, and in retaining them. So what are the issues you face with regard to your middle level managers and your senior management in the company in recruiting them, training or educating them, and retaining them?
You can go to the next slide and then take ideas from the questions. And are these some of the reasons about recruiting managers, maybe just to have a discussion point?
Right.
So are there enough managers in the job market? Are the managers have enough technical knowledge? Do they have managerial skills? Are the salary and benefits that you provide to managers are competitive? Are there competition from the neighboring companies, whether they offer better perks for the managers? So are these are kind of things that we can quickly discuss through if you have any questions from the audience, or if you have any suggestions or what you have done as a best practice. When it comes to another slide later on, I will discuss about the case study and best practices.
So I see Hassam says middle management is the worst and hardest ever. And Zayed Mohammed says, he's responding to the problem of the disconnection between academe and industry, which exists everywhere, of course. In fact, we've done quite a bit of work on the alignment between the outputs of universities and the needs of industry. In fact, a three-way alignment: the needs of students, the outputs of academia, and the needs of industry. And those three things don't align very well, because what we like is that students want to go into these specific careers, and university, which are what companies want, and universities train them to do that. And that's a very nice alignment. But actually, often education and training systems aren't quite well aligned to actually what industry wants. And as an academic, I would say, of course, university was not meant as a training ground. It was meant as an intellectual development ground. So I understand, having been in industry and been an academic, I understand both sides of this story.
So let's go to training, managers training. And we understand that I think I have heard this also at the Magic when I met a couple of companies from Egypt, and then by attending some of the meetings that Anne had, that you are having an issue with the middle management. I think so. I think there should be a strategic thinking for your companies to how to overcome this problem, or maybe to learn from other countries which had this problem and how they overcome these problems. So in terms of the training, is there an internal culture to develop managerial skills? Do you have time? Because I have seen this in a lot of companies. You're just dealing day-to-day problems. There's not much time to think out of the box, to train managers or to professionally develop them, make them happy. not just make them happy by giving perks, but make them happy for working, make them happy, let them work hard, and then recognize the hard working. And then are there any apparel specific education programs to develop managerial skills? Is the training and education program cost high? The managers leave the company? Do they leave the company because when they get trained in your company, do they leave? Now, these are common issues or common things that I have seen in the industry for middle managers, especially. But senior managers, usually they stick to the company for quite a long time, but middle managers, we have seen quite a turnover in most companies, especially in the Asian region that I have worked with. Let's go to the next slide.
And is commenting about the German applied science universities, which are a model to follow, where students spend time in companies and in the classroom, and it really orients them towards the industry.
This very interesting. Oh, sorry. So the students spend at least, they study 4 years, and at least like 1 full year they will work in companies, sometimes even like 1.5 years of those four years. So, and they are not allowed to just do a couple of weeks. They have to do 6 months in a row in one company to even succeed in their degree, which makes them really well prepared in having the industry context and really working already with companies. And they get jobs quicker, obviously, because a lot of companies will hire them afterwards.
Right. And the other thing is that students can earn money whilst working in the companies, and that helps pay for their education.
Yeah, that sandwich, like they may work 3 days a week and go to school for 2 days a week. That sort of sandwich training is also very beneficial. Or like you do, your students have to have an internship for a year. And that really does open them up to opportunities, and they get real training within the industry.
And also, I think I have seen some companies actually do management training programs. They hire, if you can't find people who has the textile and apparel background, you can hire like operations management, like business students, and then you can have management training programs to starting in the ground level. You can run them through all the departments as a management trainee. You don't have to pay the managerial salaries at that level, but you can have a proper path for them to be managers. So it's very important that you structure your HR, your human resource will have talent acquisition, talent management, and talent development. So these are very, very important aspects of the human resource for companies. And you have to start small. As I said in the previous webinar, you cannot do these things overnight. You have to start one step at a time. And it should be a long-term strategic planning. So, so the retention issues, these are common retention issues, salaries and benefits, not competitive. I don't think the reputation for a manager job are not favorable in apparel industry in Egypt, but it can be sometimes. People like to go to IT industry, banking sectors, and other industries sometimes. And you have to offer perks for managers. Of course, again, it depends on your profitability of the business. Like I have seen companies offering mobile phone services, cars, loans, and so on and so forth for these managers. Sometimes the managers leave, you can't retain them because you don't have proper systems and technologies in place. I can remember the first company that I started working did not have proper systems in place. You're like firefighting, you're running everywhere from morning to evening. You don't know where you're actually heading. You're like, it's like, like chickens, sometimes you'd run everywhere, try to solve the day-to-day problems. But, it's going to be very difficult for people to do such a thing. You have to have systems in place. You have to develop these people. You have to professionally develop so that you can keep you can have a good retention. The company culture, I will discuss that in another slide, but this is very, very, very important. You have to create a culture of fearless decision-making, acceptance, rewarding, and professional growth. And that's very, 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 very important. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I'll discuss this slide. So as we know, I'm sure we all have gone through the best practices of company organization and culture. Now, 5 things that effective organizations should do in this slide from the Bain and Company consultancy company. But it starts with the leadership. A strong leadership actually drives the success of the business. It leads to trust of their decision. And it's very important because the decision making must be based on scientific reasoning. I discussed this before. It should be based on scientific reasoning. It can't be just because you have experience. You can make a decision, but then it has to be reasoned out why you're making that decision. Then you can make your employees accountable for their actions and decisions. When you have a scientific way of making decisions, then you can make your employees accountable. It does not mean you are trying to penalize it, but make them understand what they need to do, what the targets, what is the timeline for achievement. The people are the most important resource in an organization, because one person can do this. You have to decentralize your decision making, and that is what I have seen in many fairly smaller companies, that the owner or the CEO is trying to do everything. You are trying to do your production, you are trying to do your quality, you are trying to do your purchasing, sourcing, everything, finance, accounting, and that is not possible moving from, again, CMT to your own brand, or even half package and full package, which is the trajectory that we discussed. So the success of the organization is its people, and I'm repeating this many times, and because I have studied of companies, how they have developed. And then people, if you want to do a good job, you need good systems, right? You need to manage your work process properly. It can be payroll systems, it can be accounting system, it can be human resource system, it can be technology systems, but you need proper management of the work process, and you need to control it. You need to develop a culture of continuous improvement. It's very important that you need to develop a culture of continuous improvement. You can see companies like the Mass Holdings, which I'm going to talk in the next slide, we provide lot of benefits. I mean, they're sometimes they are not that expensive. The incentives, benefits, you include your employees, you empower them, make sure the harassment-free environment, make sure it's a fearless company, it's a fearless organization. They can make decisions fearlessly, but based on scientific reasoning, not just you make a decision because you thought it is correct, but it should be correct. Most of the time, sometimes decision can be correct, decision can be wrong. However, you should make a decision based on scientific reasoning. You should be open to change. It's a continuous learning and improvement environment, a culture that you have to create. And this quote, as you can see, is very important. This is a quote from Mass Holdings again, what they have implemented. Providing these incentives to the operators. This was a long time ago. So what the quote says, it was the right thing to do. We had absolutely no idea that 20 years ago, the things we were doing would be called the corporate social responsibility today. So the corporate social responsibility, which is one of the compliance requirements from many brands. So they did that, and they found that eventually it was called corporate social responsibility. It's very important. Next slide, please. So this is the case study. I would like to take maybe 2-3 minutes on this. And this company, I think I encourage you to also take a look at it. I have read their case studies. I have been even talking to, I talked to one of the director of quality over yesterday actually. And I was actually asking them what are the developments in training, recruiting, training, and retention, because I was attending this webinar today. I was speaking on this webinar. And in fact, I sent a message to my friend who's a director. And he said, I'm sorry, Mudita, I can't get through to the corporate, the human resource, because over the weekend, they are not supposed to answer any questions. So that's the culture. Over the weekend, the corporate is taking leave. Now, how many companies you think that who are not working over the weekend, the CEOs and general managers and senior managers? I mean, most companies that I have seen, they are working around the clock, 7 days a week, 24 hours, pretty much sometimes. So this company, as you can see the quote on the top, one of the directors said, companies that attract the best people perform better. This is true regardless of where you are in the world, which is absolutely correct. And I have put the case study website on the slide. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and take a look at it. But I also have some other information on this because I think this is what we discussed: how to develop, how to recruit, how to train, how to keep, whether it's operators, supervisors, technical specialists, or managers. So this company, Mass Holdings, is an intimate sports and swimwear company working around in 18 countries, 55 facilities, and more than 100,000 direct employees. Big company. I have been monitoring them since 1990s, and how the company started actually getting expat help at that time, and how they actually got them trained and then developed their workforce. And in fact, after the expats left the company, they have even started some strategic departments like, SAP, and started their own consulting company in that region, providing that service. So that they learned from SAP consultants, and then they started their own consulting SAP business. Now, this is not apparel, but these are the strategic directions that they have moved. So this company, they even have changed the name of training and development to learning and development, because they want the learning to be a permanent change in their employees. And this particular talent management that they have done through a competency framework. Now, these are information that is not in this particular case study, but that I have found from some documents which are not public. And what they said was they have 3 measurable behaviors comprising of knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform the job. So those 3 measurable behaviors, they categorize them as technical competencies, professional competencies, and leadership competencies. So they go through this, recruitment, training, and retention. Their recruitment, they call it goal and get. So that means they are setting up a goal for recruitment, and they get the people they want through maintaining skill inventory. So they do that based on the competency framework. They call it talent attraction. And under the training and retention, they have the learning and development. The talent development is based on the competency framework that they develop, identifying essential talent. So each employee has an individual development plan in the company. So everybody has an individual development plan, and they call it GROW. And then they have performance management. They have 3 stages in performance management. They have goal setting, at the beginning of the year, they have a mid-year review, and they have a year-end review. This particular process starts with the chairman. The chairman send a document to the senior managers, which will go down the ladder. So that means the performance management is started from the senior management down the ladder, and they call it GLOW, G-L-O-W. Then they have succession management. That is, they identify and develop a talent pipeline. That means they identify talented people and they develop for future leadership roles. Now that is called succession management. Then they have a career management, which is a systematic process to allow employees to be where they want to be. Career management. So they call it Quest Profile Psychometric Assessment. They do an assessment and they identify people and ask the people where they would like to be, and they try to help them achieve those goals. They also have a very smart rewarding and recognition system. So they give both monetary and non-monetary compensation benefits. This is done by human resource conducting an annual a survey of the company and identify the performance, and then they provide monetary and non-monetary compensation benefits. Then they also do something called engagement. They call it glue. Sorry about that. They call it, the engagement is called, they call it glue. So they engage the workforce, sorry. They engage the workforce through various programs. So I'll quickly go through one. One of them is, they call it Women Go Beyond. So they have a program. I think that this is a program that is in fact acknowledged by Nike and Guess and Marks and Spencer, Victoria's Secret. They're working with those companies. That is to empower women. They provide opportunity to gain economic independence, to advance their careers, their leadership skills, to improve their knowledge, the entrepreneurial skills, and to change their attitudes, and to balance their day-to-day life. So that is called Women Go Beyond. There's another program that they get the people engaged in called Eco Go Beyond. So that is a strategic sustainability approach where the employees who work in the company actually go to the schools in the rural areas where they work and actually educate the students on sustainable development. This is also part of the to achieve the UN sustainability goal. So these are like to get them engaged in the company. So these are retention strategies. So I think this is not something they have done within a week. This is something they have done over like a 20-year period. So I think that's the trajectory that companies have to look for. Yeah. Next slide.
Okay. Thanks, Meditha. So yes, Anne, we can. By way of finishing off, because time is our enemy, as it always is in these webinars. So a critical thing in your company's development, of course, is tapping into the support infrastructure that is available. The universities and colleges, the trade organizations, and the government institutions as well. If we can move to the next slide, Anne. So this is a quick list of the organizations that are out there and the kind of things, you know what they do. They all provide overlapping series of services. And I think it's been mentioned in the chat that there's quite a lot of these things available for some things. Some other things seem to be in short supply. one of the critical things about a successful industry is that all of these organizations work quite closely together with companies, that everybody's invested in each other. And it creates something in the left-hand green column there at the bottom, a level of networking, industry buzz, it is called. That's actually the terminology that's used in the academic literature, industry buzz. One of the industries that have very high levels of buzz include places like Italy, Germany, China, needless to say, Korea. Places that have a relatively low level of buzz include somewhere like the United Kingdom. I studied effectively for my PhD, I studied the declining of the UK textile and clothing industries. And one of the factors in its decline was the breakdown of networking and the dysfunctionality of industry support infrastructures, that training schools that originally were set up to train technical people for the industry then became more academic and instead gave an academic education. So then there was the shortage of training skills, and companies didn't talk to each other. They became distrustful. They saw each other as competitors that were stealing customers and stealing employees. And the breakdown was actually detrimental to the whole industry. But if you look at industries that are very successful and growing, the level of networking, the level of the intensity of the interaction between companies and trade organizations, companies in education, training institutes, research institutes, they're all very high. There's a lot of activity. And you go and you visit some of the trade organizations in Italy or Germany, places like South Korea. Turkey is another great example. There's such a huge amount of activity going on there. And so it's very important, and it starts with the companies, that companies have to be open and find the time to reach out and be involved. But there's a need for everybody to be interacting and networking and to increase that interaction, because ideas come from it. Another project I was involved in with working in with companies in the UK was actually strategic management development, that we actually persuaded a group of companies to come and sit together around a table and discuss strategic development. And it was sponsored by Barclays Bank. And these companies, they didn't want to talk to each other. But in the end, they realized they got a huge amount out, partly from they were co-sponsoring something. Instead of paying for the whole thing, they only paid a very small fraction. And the thing is, as they became more open with each other, they started sharing ideas that saved each other money. I remember somebody saying, oh, we had something somebody said at the discussion today, tomorrow I'm going to go and save my company £20,000 because what they said they do, we don't do that in our company, but we could do it tomorrow and it'll immediately save me £20,000. So there's a lot of great ideas come from networking. And I remember also another thing about the Italian industry is they would have social events together. And they would be open and share things, even though they were intense competitors. So I think networking and raising the intensity of activity and engagement between companies and institutions, and between institutions themselves, is an important direction to go. Did we have a question on? Did we have a question on this, Anne?
We did have a question, but I think because of time, maybe we open it for discussion, and yes, for anybody who has any closing questions, because that's our last slide, basically. Yes. Maybe so also some of the companies, if you have already discovered some solutions, maybe small steps towards a change, maybe that would be a great way to share if you in your company established certain methods of recruiting, certain methods of retention. So we would love to hear who is already doing something, or maybe already started doing something, and you see the effects, the positive effects on your company?
Can I just jump in and say something, an observation from us all working together and coming from it from a design and technical design point of view, that from what I've observed, that there is a kind of need for understanding merchandising, understanding how to put garments together to show them. It's not so much about trends these days, it's about how garments are shown and put together, merchandise. And so merchandising is equally as important as design. And there seems to be a hole there that could be trained and get some people who could help with the merchandising, or I'm not sure what the colleges are teaching. Design and merchandising, I mean, these days the emphasis far more on the merchandising than it is on design, but also like the technical skills as well, we all need to understand those, as if you're teaching in colleges, the software that's needed, and that's also very important. Not sure where we haven't seen any of the curriculums yet from the colleges, but that will be an important part that hopefully we can resolve.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Francis, working now over the last couple of months with everybody. Merchandising, especially now in the digital environment where we are in, combining the merchandise with the digital merchandise. And Jill had some really good slides and inputs on that in our last presentation. All of that is so important on selling your brand and overall being able to really have the right combination of products and making sure the buyer understands what you can offer. So I agree that this is a really important point.
I mean, one point is something as easy as if you're offering a t-shirt, a lot of you doing t-shirts, is why not extend that and, you know, make the same body with long sleeves, different necklines, make them different lengths, coordinate the coloring. If you've got prints on them, then maybe you can, a lot of people are buying mum and dad and kids matching outfits or whatever, and, you know, scale down the graphics. But merchandising and showing the merchandise, how it's put together, even if you're only doing cut and sew, it's still important for your website to understand how to show your goods. If you go even to a trade show, your trade show is your booth, and in the booth you need to merchandise your goods. I remember I was working with a Turkish company. They took 3 booths at Magic, and at the end of the day they called me up and said, we're not getting any sales. And I went down there, we just had to take everything down and re-merchandise, and most of it stayed in a suitcase. But it was about showing the product in the most effective way. And once that was done, it works. So really I can't emphasize enough the need for more visual merchandising and how to put it together. Now we've got online shows. You need to understand your showroom online needs to be merchandised and show the goods in the best possible way. If you're doing bottoms as well as tops, put them together so they work out together. That's just my 2 cents, Tori, at the end. I know we're in a rush.
Francis, this is Sandra. If I can say something and ask you something, would you, because I'm interested in trying to see how we can fit the gap, that I totally agree with you. Would you, if I say the word styling, is it equivalent or equal to merchandising to you?
It's similar, really. Understanding how to put garments together and showing them in the best way. You could have the t-shirts that's shown in, you know, for active sportswear. It could be shown in a way for with a jacket over it. So yeah, you have to have that understanding of how to give people, because these days, without there really being real directions and trends, people are living lifestyles. So you need to address the lifestyle merchandising of your products and who will buy it. The demographics and maybe body types too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
So anybody have any final questions or comments they would like to make? Thank you for all of the comments you've been making. We had a very active chat room, and and audio discussion today. So if you have any more, please share now. A couple of things. One is that this presentation, this discussion, and previous webinars that we've held, I believe are accessible via the ITC website. Is that true, Yasmin?
It's accessible through the YouTube channel of GTEx Menatex Egypt, and right. I share the link to each and every session directly by email with attendees. But if anyone is searching online on YouTube for GTEx Menatex Egypt channel, he will be able to find all the webinars, these webinars, this series of webinars.
Okay, thanks, Yasmin. And so if you've missed some of our previous webinars, you'll be able to access them there. And our next webinar is about go-to-market strategies and business development for the US market. And that will be Sunday, January the 10th at the same time. So 5 p.m. Cairo. So, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And if you have additional questions, we're also available independently. You can reach out via Yasmin or Rania or Sandra to if you can't reach us directly, they'll direct you towards us. So we'll be happy to talk to you, email with you, and thank you for attending, and we'll see you in the new year, and wish you all the best for a prosperous and a much, hopefully, healthier 2021. So thank you, everybody.
Can I make a quick announcement? I see that I was just reading the chat box now, some of the things that I missed. I see that there's a disconnect between the education institutions and the industry, which is very common. And if you have anybody, I saw quite comments from, I think, his side, and you're talking about the education, the disconnect from the industry with the industry. And I'm working on the education side to develop the support from the education to the industry. And if you have any comments or any suggestions, or if you like to get in touch with me, please send me an email. You have my email on the second slide, I believe, and would like to get your comments. This will help me to understand some of the things that you're facing and issues, and it will help also for me to work on these areas on the education side. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Medita. Well, thank you, everybody. Happy holidays, and hope to see you again in the new year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.